Welcome back, guys. My name is Chris, and in this video, I want to give you some urgent news regarding the NetSuite new release notes quiz, which is currently available for a great deal of NetSuite consultants, developers, administrators, users, and things like that. So this video is going to be a bit long, but I want to make sure that you understand this right out the gate. August 31st is the deadline for many people to take the new release notes quiz and pass that so you can keep your certificates valid. So later in this video, I'm going to show you how you can log in to the exact place you need to go to be able to take the quiz, or at least see if you're able to take the quiz, how you can actually take it. I'll give you some tips on going through that, some basic information about the quiz itself, but all of this is relevant to the subject of passing that quiz so you can keep your NetSuite certifications valid. This is something people have been asking me about incessantly for the last several months because there's been some degree of ambiguity and uncertainty in terms of what exactly is happening. And obviously, if you've worked for years and spent thousands of dollars getting a bunch of NetSuite certifications, you don't want them all to expire. So this is a sensitive point for a lot of NetSuite professionals. So again, the key piece of information is August 31st is the deadline. And later in this video, I'm going to show you exactly where to log in and how to take that quiz. So with that key information up front, if it is relevant to you. Now, if you don't have NetSuite certifications, this video has no application for you whatsoever. So don't worry about it. But assuming you do, I now want to take a little bit more time and give you some of the background information, some things you need to understand. There's kind of a lot involved in this and some things that I think people are going to want to know about because people generally have a lot of questions on this topic. So I'm going to try to move quickly and I'm going to try to keep the rambling down to a minimum because there's just so many random pieces of information. So the first thing I think we should cover is just the new release notes quiz overall. If you have any question on what that is basically a quiz that comes out and it's going to test you on what are called new release notes for NetSuite. So every year, you probably already know this, but NetSuite comes out with 2 release notes every year. In other words, they do an update to the system and they have notes that show everything that was released and updated in the system. That happens twice a year. And there's a quiz that quizzes you on those changes, the updates to the system. And based on that simple, short quiz, what it does is it doesn't just test you on the fact of what changed, but by doing and passing that quiz, it takes all the certifications that you already have and it makes them valid for another year. So if you don't do it, even if you have something like Suite Foundation certification, if you have years go by and you haven't taken those new release notes quizzes, then your certs will expire. So that's the basic concept of it. There has been a bit of uncertainty and confusion in the last year or so because NetSuite's been going through a revamp on their certification program overall, which obviously includes the how to renew them and how to keep them valid moving forward. So that kind of fell out for a little bit and then is now kind of being re-implemented and is still in the process of being modified and kind of revamped. So I will be coming out with a more extensive video, probably in 3 or 4 weeks, where I talk about the new program overall, things you should be aware of in regards to it, how it's different from the old program. But none of that is particularly relevant for this video. In this video, the main thing I want to get across is the fact that there is this deadline coming up on the 31st of August. And for a lot of people, that is a very relevant deadline. You need to make sure you don't let it pass. Otherwise, your certs will expire and very, very, very unlikely that you're going to be able to do anything about it. So with those general concepts in mind, let's now give some of the details about the quiz. And again, later in this video, I will show you how to log in and actually take the quiz itself. But for now, let's just go through some of the key details. And I have them listed out here. The first thing to be aware of, again, I just can't say this enough times, 31st of August is the deadline. So as the moment I'm releasing this video, it's about 2 weeks from now. So you have a very limited timeline. Don't let the time pass. It's a very hard deadline. It's not going to be pushed forward any further. Second thing you need to keep in mind is that it is an open book quiz. So what that means is, unlike other certifications that you can get like Suite Foundation or even certifications for other ERP systems where they lock off your computer, there's a webcam, they don't allow you to just walk around or eat food or take a phone call, anything like that. That is not the case for this quiz. It is simply you log in anytime you want and you go in, you take the quiz, you have a certain allotted amount of time. You can wander off, there's no webcam, no one's watching you, and you can have the release notes in front of you and access them and use them. In fact, it's recommended that you go to the release notes for the answers to the questions you find in the quiz itself. Now, what is the quiz covering? As I mentioned briefly earlier, there are 2 releases in a year, and there are 2 notes that go along with those releases, and that's exactly what they're going to be quizzing you on. So in this one in particular, this is technically the quiz for 2025, because again, there was a little bit of a hiatus there. So it's not quizzing you on 2026. That will come later. Don't worry. I'll have a video about that soon. It's quizzing you on 2025.1 and 2025.2. The next thing you should keep in mind is that there is a $50 fee to take this quiz. I know that's confusing for some people, which know in the past you used to be able to take advantage of a promo or a coupon that allowed you to waive the fee and be able to every year just get your release quiz completed without any kind of charge. In this particular case, that is not the circumstance. You are going to need to spend $50. The only exception to that is certain partner companies who have already been promised to be able to apply certain kind of credits basically to waive the fees on some of these quizzes, especially for maybe their employees, their consultants, things like that. Those partner companies should be hearing in the next several days, most likely right at the middle of August. They'll be receiving an email giving them details on how they can apply those credits. For everyone else, there's really not a way to get around it. In this particular case, you do need to spend the $50. But for everyone who spent hundreds or even thousands of dollars and all kinds of time getting those certifications, it's worth the money to keep them valid. So moving on from that, in terms of the quiz itself, it is, like I said, open book. You have 30 questions. All of them are going to be relevant to the release notes. So they're going to be asking you something about changes that have been made in the NetSuite system. And out of the 30 questions, you need to get 70% of them correct to be able to pass the quiz, which in general, I would say is not difficult. And I would also say it doesn't necessarily require you to prep for the exam. I'll give you some more tips on that in a little bit, but just understand that with almost no preparation, you can probably go into the quiz very quickly and pass it within, let's say, 20 minutes. So you've got plenty of time, 70% needed to pass it. If you do happen to flunk, you will have to pay another $50 to take it again. And you have 3 times or 3 options to take it before it's basically considered that you did not pass and you will not have the ability to renew your certifications as a result. So just keep that in mind. It should be very easy for you to pass in 1 attempt. Certainly 3 is absolutely doable for anyone who already has their certifications. All right, so those are the key details about the quiz itself. Now, before we jump into the system and actually show you how you can sign up for it, you do need to be aware of the fact that not everyone is going to be eligible to take the quiz. So let me try to explain this. It honestly gets a little bit confusing because in terms of who is eligible to take it is dependent on several factors and dates in terms of when you got your certifications, when they've last been renewed, etc. Trying to lay all that out is going to be a little bit complicated, and frankly, it's just not that necessary. The simplicity is there are 3 possible categories that you could fall into, assuming you do have NetSuite certifications already. So the first category is that you've taken and passed your certifications quite a bit in the past. So let's say in 2022 or 2023, and in 2024, you did not take the necessary new release notes quiz to keep your certifications valid. And what that means is you're in a circumstance where you're not going to be able to take this quiz right now because you've already long since passed the date when you would be eligible to take and keep your certifications valid. So there are a certain cohort of people that simply have long passed that window, and their certs have expired. There's not really much they're going to be able to do about that. The second category, which I assume is going to be quite a few people that fall into this, is, and maybe I should split this category into 2. There are people that do fall in the category of needing to update their certifications by taking the quiz and have already taken it in recent months. If you've taken it in the last few months, you're perfectly fine. Don't worry about any of this. However, for everyone who's watching this because they haven't yet taken the quiz, then these are people that have certifications. They need to be validated and kept kind of up to date, and you need to take the quiz, meaning you'll have to log in, and you have until August 31st. So that's the second major category. The third category, however, are people who have gotten their certifications more recently, and the window in which they're required to do this kind of a quiz to update and keep their certificates valid has not come about yet. So that August 31st date is not valid for them. So basically what's going to happen is in the next several weeks, Oracle's actually going to be announcing and giving plenty of information about more details really regarding the certification program and how they're going to be refining the renewal process. I'm not going to be teasing that in this video. Again, I'll have another video on that specifically. So that problem will come later, and we will talk about that in a later video, and Oracle will discuss that in much greater detail. So if you fall into that circumstance where you're not able to take the quiz right now, you're going to be able to take it when they come out with their updated version in several weeks. That's an entirely different kettle of fish, in which case you can check right now if you fall into that category. And if you do, fine, just wait for that new program to come out. But for everyone that, as I'm going to show you in a second, can check and finds that they are able to take the quiz, now we're going to walk through how you can actually sign up for that and some things you should be aware of when you're going through the quiz itself. So let's take a look at this. All right, so here we are in just a standard browser, and let's do a search for NetSuite Release Notes Quiz. And just doing a standard search on that, you can see we get some AI information up here, but really down here, this is what we want, this 2025 new release quiz FAQs. So this document, if you click on it, it brings you to this long document that has a lot of the information I've already said, but with some additional information. So this is important. I would definitely take a look at this. This is the official frequently asked questions. Now, there's one thing that's currently missing from this document, which I've been told is going to be added very shortly, which is hyperlinks to actually go to the release notes themselves. In other words, 2025.1 and 0.2. Those are currently not included in this document, but that should be coming out within the next 24, 48 hours. So hopefully by the time you open up this link, you will see those links there. So that's exactly how you can open up those PDFs so you have them as reference. But for now, if you want to just log in and see if you even have the ability to take the quiz, what you do is you come down here. You can see it gives a lot of the information I've already discussed. And right here, you can see, how do I access the quiz? Right here, we've got Web Assessor. Now, although currently Oracle has moved things over to Oracle MyLearn, and we'll be talking about that more in another video. For now, a lot of you probably remember Web Assessor and Criterion, which was the ways that you would do certifications in the past. When it comes to this particular new release notes quiz, it is still being done in Web Assessor. So just be aware of that. Get out those Web Assessor passwords, whatever logon you used previously for that. In my particular case, my Oracle MyLearn account is actually with a different email address. And then when I went back to log in with Web Assessor, I realized I was using an older email address. So that's one thing to be aware of. Not only do you have to log in with whatever email address you previously had with Web Assessor to originally take your certifications, but also be aware of the fact that when Oracle's sending out these emails letting you know that it's time for you to take your quiz for the new update, they're not sending it to your Oracle MyLearn email address, which is probably what you're looking at. They may be sending it to your old, in fact, they will be sending it to the old email address that is used here. So if those are different emails, be aware of the fact that you may have missed it because it's going to a different email address. So in this particular case, now I'm going to blur this out, so because it's my own email, but I'm going to put in this information and we're going to log in to Web Assessor. So we come here. I'm not going to do an entire detailed walkthrough of Web Assessor. We'll keep it pretty to the point. We can come over here and click Register for an exam. And it's going to show a list of all the possible quizzes that we can take using Web Assessor. In the past, this used to be everything that you may want to take in terms of Suite Foundation, ERP Consultant, etc. And frankly, if you're in India still at the moment, you're going to see a lot of the certifications for Indians still listed out here. But the only one we're interested in is if we scroll all the way to the bottom here, you can see we have this 2025 new release quiz. So this is where you want to go. And if you find this quiz is here, that means you're eligible to take the quiz. If you're not seeing it here, well, then you fall into either Camp 1 or Camp 3, meaning you've either long since had your certifications expired and you're simply not eligible to take the release quiz, or you've taken certifications more recently and you're not able to take the 2025 new release quiz. You're going to need to take it when the new revamp program comes out in several weeks. So if that's the circumstance, that's totally fine. But assuming you do have it here, you can see it gives you some of the basic information. It's $50, it's non-proctored. Now in this particular case, it actually lets me know that I passed this quiz already because obviously I did it a couple months ago. So in this particular case, it gives me a warning message and it says I can't take it anymore. But let's assume I hadn't taken the quiz. Over here on the right, it would allow me to buy the exam. It goes through a whole payment processor. I do that, put in my credit card info, etc., buy the quiz, and then you can immediately log in or log in whenever you want to take the quiz because it's not proctored. So you can sign up anytime you want. There's not really a time limit. You can just in one sitting take as long as you want and do the quiz. Now, when you start, there are a few different strategies you can apply to basically make sure you get a passing score on the quiz. And I'm assuming that you've done no preparation for the exam. Now, while you should have the release notes, both the 2025.1 and 2 on hand, let's assume you've not taken a look at them at all. You have no idea what's coming up with those release notes or on the quiz itself. That's perfectly fine. So 3 ways that you can approach this quiz. And I actually applied all 3. The first thing you can do is you come across a question, and if you read the question and you probably have some familiarity with the NetSuite system, what you're gonna find for, in my case, I found this for every single one of the questions, was that the way the question is worded, even though it was technically asking about a new feature that I really didn't know anything about or hadn't heard about, the way they worded the question and the way they gave the answers, there were 3 answers that were clearly insane, meaning just based on anyone who has a basic familiarity with NetSuite, they'll say things like, you're going to be going in and deleting records, and you should never be doing that in NetSuite. They're going to position answers that just seem absolutely incorrect, even though you don't really know what the topic is about. And then there's going to be one answer that seems at least rational or possible, and that's going to be the correct answer. So when I was going through my own quiz, for every question, I first looked at it and went, with no other information, can I answer this question? And I found in every instance I could. The second option is, like I said, you can have the release notes in front of you. As soon as you look at that question, you take some kind of keyword from the question, you do a search in the release notes, 2025.1 and 2, because you may find it in one or the other. You find the section where it's talking about that, you read up on what's changed, what's applicable, you go back to the question, you choose the answer that is acceptable. That is an appropriate way to handle it. In fact, that's the way that Oracle would recommend that you approach this. The only thing I would say that you need to be careful about, like I just mentioned earlier, in that PDF, it currently does not have the release notes on it. When I did the quiz, they didn't have them there, so I personally had to go find the release notes, and I found an older version of the release notes that I didn't actually have everything that was included in the final version. So what I found when I was going through the test is that method of doing a control find, there were at least 6 questions where it asks about a particular tool, and if I searched on both release notes for that particular keyword, they were not mentioned anywhere. So meaning I had an older version and there was really no way to get an answer from the release notes. So hopefully you don't run into that because they do have an updated PDF with the most recent updated release notes. And if that's the case, then great, you won't have any problem. And you should pretty easily be able to search every one of the 30 questions on the release notes, get an easy answer, go straight to it, and answer the question. Again, that is the recommended approach. And then the third one, let's be honest, this is an open book exam, and there are tools like ChatGPT, Claude, etc. Now, what you can do is you can either just plug in questions, or what I would recommend if you're going to do anything with AI is upload the release notes. And basically, Claude is almost going to act as a more intelligent control search. So it's not only just going to look for keywords, but it's also going to look for the context related for that. So in many ways, it's a very similar approach to the second method, but you should be aware that there are drawbacks of that. As you're probably aware of, these AI chat tools can hallucinate. It's also dependent on the exact model that you're using in terms of how intelligent it actually is at being able to extract information. So just be aware of that. These are no guaranteed to getting the answers correct. Now, again, when I personally did it, I used each one of the 3 methods, meaning I first looked at it and saw if I could answer the question myself. Then I did a control find for the 24 or so questions that I actually found. I easily found the answer to the question, and then I put it into ChatGPT. And what I found was for all 30 questions, even the ones that were not included in the release notes, ChatGPT was able to find the correct answer, the one that I had determined was correct in the very beginning. So just be aware of that. Don't necessarily take that as a recommendation. You have to be aware of the fact that these AI tools can be flawed. And if you do flunk using one of these other tools or methods, you will have to pay $50 to retake the test. But I just want to make sure that you are aware of all the options that you have available to you. All right, so that's everything you should know about the NetSuite new release notes quiz. I hope I answered everyone's questions. I know this is a bit of a long video, but if you still have any remaining questions, feel free to go on my Super Training website. I have contact forms there and you can reach out to me by email. I'll try to answer any remaining questions that anyone has. You can also reach out to Oracle directly via Oracle MyLearn and CertView. They have the ability to put in support tickets, especially if you have any questions of have my certs expired, what is my recourse, you can reach out to them directly. And then I want to reiterate one more time that this is all in relation to the quiz you can take up to August 31st. Beyond that, Oracle will be coming out with a revamped program. They will make announcements on that. I'll be coming out with videos on that. So if you're wondering what's going to be happening and what's the precedent moving forward, don't worry, that's all coming in the near future. So if you found this video helpful, please hit that like button, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and with all that in mind, I'll see you in the next video.